Hi, my name is Shawn Jones, and I work at the Los Alamos National Laboratory as a member of the Research Library Prototyping Team, which is led by Martin Klein. I'm also a member of the Web Science and Digital Libraries Research Group at Old Dominion University, which is led by Michael Nelson and Michele Weigle. And today I'm going to be talking about Memento Embed and Raintale for web archive storytelling. I'd like to thank the IMLS for initially funding the research that led to the development of these tools. And I'd also like to thank the IIPC for furthering to fund the development of these tools so that others could use them. Now, storytelling with web archives has multiple use cases. The first is promotion of the collection. Archivists can promote their collection through storytelling, making others aware of it, make it more enticing to others so that they'll come and visit the collection. The second is exploring aspects of the collection. Users can explore a collection and expose specific people or places, or maybe just feature a particular side of the news story. And finally, summarization. Web archive collections often contain thousands of documents, and this is too large for manual review. So if someone's trying to figure out if the collection suits their needs, storytelling can give them the gist of the collection, thus helping them make their decision. Now, surrogates provide a visual summary of the content behind a URL. We take this long URL here, and unless we're very, very familiar with the Google Maps API circa 2017, we may not know where this goes. But if we represent it as a browser thumbnail, as you see in the lower left, we see a screenshot of what the page looks like in a browser. But it's kind of small, and what we see is a map and a form, and we're not really sure what this means for us. But on the lower right, if we take the same URL and represent it as a social card surrogate, we see that it's going to give us directions from Old Dominion University to Los Alamos National Laboratory. Now, social media storytelling uses groups of surrogates to provide a summary of summaries. Each surrogate summarizes a web resource. Each story groups the surrogates, helping us summarize a topic. As we see on the left in this Storify story about the Boston Marathon bombing, there's pictures of suspects, politicians, police officers. There's also headlines and fav icons and dates and other things. On the right, we have a Twitter moment, which is covering the death of Apollo 11 astronaut Michael Collins. We have stories covering his life, what he accomplished, and reactions to his death. We want to use this technique to summarize web archive collections because users, our visitors, the people who we want to use our collections, they're already familiar with this visualization paradigm. And telling a story with mementos has three basic steps. One, select the pages from the story. Now, one can do this automatically with another tool we developed named Hypercane, or it could be done by you or someone who's visited your collection and wants to surface particular pages from it. Two, gather the information to summarize each memento with Memento Embed, one of the tools I'll cover today. And the third step is to summarize all mementos together and publish the story with a tool that I'll also cover today named Rainfale. And with these tools, we can feature different web archive collections. We can move from this archivic view of the novel coronavirus COVID-19 collection collected by the IIPC. Run it through the tools, Hypercane, Memento Embed, Raintale, and produce this, a sample of 36 mementos that are visualized as pictures, phrases, cards. On the left, we have the collection with the metadata that was painstakingly provided by archivists. On the right, we have people in masks. We have a picture of the virus. We have maps showing the virus spreading across the world. We have fav icons, headlines, dates, and links back to the collection itself so that users can explore it further. With these tools, we automatically produce daily news summaries through the Sherry process. We take StoryGraph, use it as input to Hypercane, Memento Embed, Raintale, and produce this, a story summarizing the biggest news story of a given day. We can summarize a scholar's gray literature from the web archive collections of the Scholarly Orphans Project. From this, 1,000 mementos for a particular scholar, feed it through Hypercane, Memento Embed, Raintale, and produce this, 20 mementos representing a scholar's work. Now, these tools are part of the Dark and Stormy Archives project, which gets its name from this Snoopy cartoon. Hypercane allows us to intelligently sample mementos from a collection, and Raintale visualizes those mementos as a story with Memento Embed's help. So today we're going to talk about Raintale and Memento Embed and how they apply to this process. Memento Embed allows one to visualize a single memento to share with the world. Now, we looked at existing surrogate platforms, existing social platforms, and we found that they don't reliably produce surrogates for mementos. Some produce blank rectangles. Others just repeat the URL that we submitted if they can't produce a card. And if we can't rely on them, we were thinking, do we have to produce our own service? But we didn't give up there. Some services have stories, so we looked at them. But Facebook, Instagram, and Snapchat stories all disappear within 24 hours of being posted. This is the opposite of preservation because we want the stories to be their own artifacts. And existing card services like Embedly confuse readers. We take a resource like this from CNN, but it's actually been preserved by Archivit. We put this memento into Embedly, and it produces a beautiful image, wonderful text, and simultaneously attributes the content to CNN and Archivit. If we were to embed this card into a blog post or a story, our readers might be wondering, are we sharing fake news? Because this is confusing. Unlike other services, Memento Embed is archive aware. It can take this long URL and then produce a card like this, which separates information about the archive from information from the memento from information about the memento. And this way, users can see that this particular article is about the Egyptian Revolution. It was written by CNN, but it was preserved at Archivit, and also which collection it's part of. We can also link users to other mementos for this particular page, or even the current version of the page. And we can even indicate when the current page is no longer available, like this long URL we have here of a memento from the National Library of Australia's web archive. It produces this card, which indicates that one can't get to the current version. And Memento Embed allows us to summarize individual pages via different surrogates. We can take this long URL of a memento from, again, the National Library of Australia. And we can produce a social card, as I showed on the previous page, as you see in the upper left, with the clownfish and the title and text and correct attribution. In the upper right, we see browser thumbnails, and this particular thumbnail also maps to this same page. On the lower right, we see a word cloud representing the same page. And on the lower left, we see an image reel. Image reels are constructed by Memento Embed from the top 5 images as scored by Memento Embed that come from that page. And then it creates an animated GIF of these images. Memento Embed has an extensive API that allows machine clients to query and gather titles, text snippets, sentence ranking. It can produce the individual surrogates that I showed you on the previous page, along with fav icons and other information about the memento. And the output is all in JSON. Raintale answers the question of what story will you tell with web archives? Memento Embed just provides surrogates, but Raintale tells stories. Raintale is a client of Memento Embed's API. It generates output in file formats like HTML or Markdown, or can publish to services like Twitter. And Raintale takes a text file consisting of the URLs for the story, which could be generated by Hypercane, or it could be generated by you. You can manually select the mementos from your story, or from your collection, and create your story. Raintale can do this because it's a client of Memento Embed's API. As we see on the top, we have the tell story command, which is Raintale's primary command. Once the user submits a list of URIMs, a list of mementos, and a template file, Raintail is off and running. It consults the template to try to figure out what information it needs for each memento. And then it asks Memento Embed for that specific information for each memento from whichever web archive that memento comes from. And Memento Embed supports any memento compliant archive. Once it finds this information, it feeds it back to Raintail, who then renders the overall story using the template. Raintail uses templates to let you customize the look and destination media of your story. In this case, these are social cards created with Jekyll as rendered by GitHub Pages on our DSA Puddles website. Then there's MediaWiki markup. Raintail can output this that you can copy and paste into a MediaWiki page. And then Twitter threads, where the first tweet is about the collection and each subsequent tweet contains information about each memento. And then if we don't want to go vertical, but we want to allow the user to scroll through the collection, we can produce an HTML carousel. And finally, I want to stress your template here. You can take your web archive collections, select some mementos, feed them through Raintail with your template, create a story representing your institution and your collection. With Raintail templates, a story can contain more than just cards. We see an example template on the left, which will produce the story you see on the right with the right mementos. And as you see, this template has a number of things that are in curly braces, and these are variables. Things like you see in the upper left-hand corner, like title, which is replaced with the title of your story. In this case, it just happens to be the name of the collection, which is Occupy Movement 2011-2012. But we also see the variable element.surrogate.thumbnail in that particular template, which Raintail then uses to replace with a thumbnail representing a memento. And that's how we produced the thumbnails for this story. And Raintail maps variables from the template to Memento Embed API endpoints in order to generate this data. Again, you feed in the template, you feed in the story file that contains your mementos. Raintail extracts the variables from the template and finds the Memento Embed API endpoints. It extracts each memento URL from the story file and appends it to that Memento Embed API endpoint, and that's how it asks Memento Embed for this information. Now, present and future. Currently, we are piloting the DSA toolkit with the National Library of Australia. And for Trove and Pandora, Memento Embed can now make social cards, browser thumbnails, word clouds, and image reels. And we're also, with the help of ODU student Himarsha Gianetti, we're developing a Raintail GUI, which we hope to share with you in the coming months. And better automated selection methods with Hypercane are coming. This is something else that they're fortunately funding us for, and we appreciate it. So in the future, for Memento Embed, we want to produce more summarization algorithms, because sometimes the default summarization that we have, which is an algorithm called Lead3, doesn't quite work as well as we'd like. And we would like to also allow machine clients to specify boilerplate removal methods, because the default of readability or just text may not work for all mementos. And we're thinking about allowing users to upload their own surrogate templates so they can produce their individual surrogates in whatever format they want. Raintail, on the other hand, we could apply additional web archiving services. We could provide direct publishing to services like Instagram or Pinterest. And we're also looking at other output formats than the web, things like PowerPoint or PDF. So for more information on the Dark and Stormy archives, I'd encourage you to visit our website and take a look at Memento Embed, which allows you to visualize a single memento to share with the world. Raintail, which answers the question of what story will you tell with web archives. And Hypercane, which I didn't get to cover today, which allows you to intelligently select mementos from a collection, answering the question of what gems will you find in web archive collections. Thank you.